was this guy right here, Sun trine Jupiter and Sun conjunct Uranus. So this is like, I'm a very special person and the world is my oyster kind of thing, right? Is that adequate? So what we really want to know is, what does it look like when we do a search? Okay, and this is actually a fairly common aspect, a fairly common recurrence, this combination. Let me clear that. Okay, so I don't see, well, 46 isn't in there. There's 46. All right. So I've got a couple of, I've got plenty of dates to look at. I will go to, when was it? See, I didn't write up Donald Trump because I wasn't going to present him to anybody ever. I was going to hide it even from myself. Let's see. Have we found, oh yeah, Luigi. So there are a bunch of people in here. There are political figures, educators, sportsmen, scholars, businessmen, baseball pitchers. And I read about all these people, and the only one that really stood out was Luigi Pirandello, who was an Italian dramatist. He was awarded the 1934 Nobel Prize in Literature for his almost magical power to turn psychological analysis into good theater. He was also a fascist for a fair amount of time before he broke up with fascism and managed to survive it, but he was followed around for the rest of his life by the fascist police. He was from a family. He had a family business that kind of went downhill, and so I thought that was an interesting parallel. But he also all his kind of fascist connections are interesting. But so this is one guy who really, the reason that he stood out so much. Oh, Lori, you got a question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the presentation, but my brain went questioning something. Just, because it's such a wide spread though, and you had to dig for some, really bombastic, narcissistic or fascist character throughout baseball pitchers and stuff. Can you refine that? I didn't know how much you can use on that software you're using for the search, but can you refine it to something like Sun conjunct Uranus, trine Neptune, opposite a moon, right? So it's a full moon, right. And maybe even add, I don't know if you can do the nodes, it's Sun conjunct the North Node, right? South Node on the moon. He was an eclipse baby. So all of a sudden you can take it down to with Uranus Sun opposite the moon, add the nodes conjunct the moon and the sun, or conjunct the sun, and now you have eclipse baby born with Uranus on his Sun trine Jupiter. You know what I'm saying? Getting more of a
yeah. that is a really good question, and it is sadly, for various reasons, it's not. I don't have a satisfying answer because, first of all, the moon moves much too quickly for me to make use of these configurations that involve the moon, because the moon's aspects are constantly recurring, right? So I'm filtering out everything I can to just really narrow it down so that people, not only do they have these aspects, but these aspects, they're not simply an orb. They are aspects that, are within a few days of each other. And ideally with like happening the same day or so.
Oh, I understand. We talked about the moon before because it is like, it's like hugely, fast moving. I mean, but the nodes are not that fast moving. The Rahu Ketu are really slow. So
that is true. That is absolutely true. And the nodes, the North Node is not part of my database, and yet it could be. I mean, this is something I need to rebuild at some point with, maybe more aspects, more planets, and so on. So yes, definitely the nodes could be added to that.
Okay, just asking because I wanted to refine Donald Trump down to something that looked more similar. That's all. That's why I asked, because I love that Marcy asked for that, comparison. Or I thought it was great. Just checking in.
So the other thing, and this, I will make a brief detour here to point out just sort of how it works. So I'm going to add Venus squared Jupiter here, so I can do these three aspects at once, and that's the most it can do. And the reason for that is that if you try to add more than that, you find that this is a unique event, and so therefore you have nobody to compare it to. So it's either a unique event or so this works because well, there are just three aspects, but if I added a fourth aspect, it would become probably a unique event. If I added Venus conjunct Saturn, and a lot of times, just with three aspects, that's what you come up with. Well, like here. So this is the only time in the 600 years that these three aspects occurred close together. And that is like 4 days before Trump's birthday. So so that's what you run into, is that you run out of the combinations that actually happen. But let's get on to the really interesting guy. Okay, now I got to get back where I was. Which was Wow, these are so close together that it also happens that if you want to look for aspects that are really like these are like less than 2 hours apart, then that becomes kind of a unique case. But I'm going to bump it up a little bit. I forget. I think I need to bump it another day. Okay. So let's look at 1840. And we have a smaller number of people. We have the wife of Robert Louis Stevenson, and we have various other people like a novelist and so on. But the notable person we have is Charles Augustus Howell. He was an art dealer and alleged blackmailer. He's best known for persuading the poet Dante Gabriele Rossetti to dig up the poems that he buried with his wife, which, must have taken some kind of arm twisting, right? This man actually inspired Arthur Conan Doyle to write a Sherlock Holmes story. But you might wonder, what does he have to do with Donald Trump? For one thing, he was a total scoundrel. He was a total scoundrel. He was a skillful salesman with his open manner, his winning address, his exhaustless gift of amusing talk. He was unsurpassable. His ability to exploit people's hobbies and weaknesses secured him several commissions. He became a business advisor. Anyway, he was where I'm looking for the part where they're kind of describing, oh yeah, his reputation. So he was all over the map. Some people thought he was great. Somebody described him as a base, treacherous, unscrupulous, and malignant fellow. Somebody else called him a soldier of fortune. Swinburne, who was an English poet, said he was the vilest wretch I ever came across. Other artists were more generous. One of the biggest liars in existence and half mad, Whistler, whoever he was, said he was a wonderful man, a genius, splendidly flamboyant.
Sorry, a stable genius. Oh my God.
Yep.
He's a genius.
Oh my God, this is too good.
Fallen on hard days, Howell did not hesitate to blackmail by the threatened sale of letters which contained the customary puerile indecencies. I love the way he wrote that. So he was the basis for a couple of, one Sherlock Holmes story and a novel. I mean, he was just he was a total scoundrel, and yet, right? That's just like they say it for Trump, and yet. But, however, let us read about his death. He died in 1890 under strange circumstances. He was found close to a Chelsea public house with his throat slit, with a coin in his mouth. The presence of the coin was believed to be a criticism of those guilty of slander. Reports are inconsistent, blah, blah. His death was ruled to have resulted from pneumonic something, the slit throat having been inflicted after he died, maybe. Numerous carefully filed letters from high-placed people were found at his home, leading to much speculation. So there you go.
So there you go. That's pretty darn amazing. That whole thing makes me almost go past life reincarnation or something.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Yeah.
I have a question, Kyle.
Yeah.
So you're starting with someone's chart and then you're searching for similar configurations. Can you just put in some yourself, like Sun to Uranus or anything like that? Can you just do custom entries to look for?
Yes, you can. Actually, that is a fairly recent addition, and I have to give Dale credit for this is something he asked for a year or two ago, and I said, I'm just not ready for that. I'm just going to look at, counterparts, looking at maybe pairs or. And so, in other words, starting out with somebody that I want to study, but this little thing over here that I use to find my Sun Mars Saturn dates, that's what this is for. So I can just put in, all that stuff. So I can put in Sun trine Jupiter, Sun conjunct Uranus, which is the same thing I've got over here. And I can say custom search, and it will come up with the same thing. I mean, basically the same list.
Okay.
So that's very handy, and I'm kind of surprised it took me so long to put that in there, but I had different things on my mind. But this turns out to be more broadly interesting when people can do that. So I also did I did this for the first time way back, like in the 2016 election. So I was looking at Trump. I also looked at Hillary. And so to make sense of this Luigi guy and why he was so interesting to me, let's see. There he is. So Luigi Pirandello, he actually wrote a novel based on the let me see. Okay. Family disaster. He wrote a novel based on the time of when the fascist movement in Italy were really coming into public, becoming public, and he described himself as a fascist, and he was kind of ridiculed for his devotion to Mussolini, but he claimed that he's apolitical. However, he had continuous conflicts with fascist leaders, and in 1927, he tore up his fascist membership card in front of the startled Secretary General of the Fascist Party. And how's that for a dramatic and risky act? So for the remainder of his life, he was always under surveillance. But the thing is, and I cannot find this place about the novel that he wrote. He wrote a novel about the fascist movement that started in Sicily. Meanwhile, one of the people that the novel was based on turns out to be one of Hillary Clinton's counterparts. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, that so this and so the man that was Hillary Clinton's counterpart was in fact murdered by the mob. And I would argue that is a perfect metaphor for what happened to Hillary. And then there's all the, just the whole fascist thing. It just got me going on this guy. And then he had all the family business stuff. And so in a way, Trump was kind of a combination of these two guys.